Hope you ever want some light reading.
Hi, Terry, you want to test your mic?
Does it work? Can you hear me?
Yeah. How you feeling?
Perfect. Much better today, but I talked with the doctor's office and I'm in quarantine till Saturday. And then I have to wear a mask for 5 more days after that.
Halloween is in October.
See?
Well, everybody knows to not visit you now because you're public,
We don't
okay?
need
Just so you know, you're public.
Yeah.
I'm sure we just violated some HIPAA rules. Knowing that Terry's in quarantine.
Hey, I spared Brenda on Monday. I asked her to do the timesheets because I just was not feeling good.
Please don't come. Don't come in, yeah, and Anna showed up and she brought the Clorox wipes to wipe all of us down.
I've been using hand sanitizer.
Probably 20 minutes
I have my
away
hand sanitizer.
at least, so we'll get started and then if we need a motion, if he's not here, then I'll probably entertain a motion to amend the agenda.
That'd be good.
Okay?
Yeah. If these folks are.
Yep. All right, good evening, everyone. I would like to call the Village of Lanham Joint Plan Commission Village Board meeting to order for Wednesday, January 29th, 2025 at 6:03 p.m. You please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's part of every meeting. I'll say it since Hector's. All right, roll call for Plan Commission. Grimm,
Here.
Newman,
Here.
Janice is absent. Lake,
Here,
Payleitner,
Here.
Lavold is also absent and Yates is present. Village Board, Lake,
here,
Calatola Roby,
here.
Newman. Here. Yates is here. Moore is, I'm not sure where Tina is. Maybe she thought 6:32. Grenier here
Here.
and Summers.
Yes, sir.
Statement of public notice.
Has been posted.
Thank you. So our attorney is not here yet. He thought 6:30, so we're gonna go ahead and get started here. And we'll see where we're at. Item number 5, discussion of possible action for approval of plan of operation for Chemray Copac LLC at 19725 Edgewood Drive, Lanham, Wisconsin, 53046, which includes 3 separate lots to be utilized by the applicant. So this is one of 3 that we'll be looking at, so make sure you've got the right one. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you folks kind of modeled this after the existing one, correct? So. Correct.
I have, actually, basically one item that I'm questioning on all 3. 0 handicap spots at all 3 locations.
It's true. Sorry.
I think they're okay. I'm not sure. Thought there had to be handicap spots on all the properties.
Yeah, or at least the manufacturing facility where presumably you sometimes have people from the public or outside the company in the building. The other ones are storage primarily, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say on the manufacturing facility, perhaps one consideration, I'm certainly not an ADA expert, is it's a very contained area, obviously, because it's got to be incredibly sterile, given the products that we make, so.
Yeah.
Entry into our manufacturing is, of course, very strictly contained, and so you don't get public coming in.
Right.
No, it certainly doesn't mean that you wouldn't maybe have an employee who would qualify for a handicap spot or a customer, for example, but.
Or a supplier. rep,
Yeah, but I think
maybe.
ADA generally applies when it's a public access,
Well,
and this
if-
is not a public access.
If I may comment, according to the ADA, a manufacturing facility with parking available to the public must provide a designated number of accessible parking spaces, including both standard accessible spaces, at least 8 feet wide, and van accessible spaces, with each space having a 5 foot wide access aisle. All clearly marked, blah, blah, blah. The amount depends on the total number of parking spots in the lot, typically ranging from 2 to 5%. So even manufacturing is not exempt from ADA regulation.
If you
Right,
have public
but-
parking, don't have public parking there.
What I'm questioning is your office space.
Yeah.
The building that has offices, that would probably have a visitor to somebody to the office,
Mhm.
that's what we're talking about,
That's-
not where they're
that's fine.
actually making the
Sure,
product.
yeah,
The office space, that's why I'm questioning on all three, they said zero, I thought maybe it was, they typed over, and just forgot to change the one.
got it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have discretion to allow for fewer.
Yeah.
Yeah, may I speak?
Yeah.
So our main facility, obviously our office is attached to the manufacturing facility.
Yep.
As you saw, very small
Yeah,
parking lot, total of, I think it's 6 parking spaces as it is. There's
Yeah.
only 6 spots.
I had to park across the street.
You had to. Sometimes too.
Have you
Yeah,
muted
whatever.
Terry for
That's not Terry, that is, someone else. I've muted them.
To be clear, we're happy to follow up on the issue and make sure that we understand what's required.
Yeah, I think
Of
we
course, if it's
can,
required, we'll make it happen.
I think we can probably move this forward.
Yeah,
With
you
some
don't have
sort
a
of
problem.
conditional stipulation or whatever and
After
at the
review,
most.
yeah.
I think they can get with Ben on that, and,
All you have to do is take one spot,
Yeah,
there is a sign.
there also is some type of grandfathering from.
But if the place gets sold, it's gonna have to go to the new owner.
That's
So,
possible.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's gonna be
But,
just a new tenant right now, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still grandfathered.
I would just say probably have Ben or building inspector.
Yeah, it'd be a review of the ordinances and then apply them to the case.
Yeah, and there might even be a requirement that says that if you have less than so many spots, you might be exempt from it as well. I mean, if they only have 6 spots and they need 2%,
Yeah.
what percentage of a parking spot does that apply to?
So motorcycle parking.
You
scheme.
get 1/3 of a ADA spot, so.
Okay.
All right.
On the motion or any more discussion?
Did anybody else have any other comments on this application?
Inspector down on the end there. Okay. Well, I'll make a motion to approve the plan of operation for Chemrite Copac at 19725 Edgewood Drive, which includes 3 separate lots.
Oh, second.
We have a motion and a second.
Seconded,
Don did.
he's not on the plan commission. Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
right.
All right, well,
I'll second.
I will second then.
We have a couple of seconds. Any other discussion? Do we want to have any comment about having this reviewed for the parking spaces, or are we?
For me, it's so insignificant.
The one thing I'm surprised that Ben ain't here. I would think Ben would have looked for. On, I wouldn't venture what he has to say, but they did provide. Sort of a landscape plan, but we really don't see the parking lot plans around the buildings. It's, I think what Ben would have called that. Actual. Layouts,
Like a site plan?
site plan, there you go, that's the word I'm looking for, I see. They have plot surveys and stuff like that, but they don't really have the site plans included with these files.
Yeah.
Which could be just something that they need to supply. Within, 60 or 90 days or something like that, to be put in the file.
So I think that really, I mean, this would be the closest you would have to that, I think, this middle insert.
So you say without.
The survey, the plat of survey, but it does not, to your point, have any
You don't really see. where the
lot
parking is.
markings on here. I mean, you can see where the lot is, but it just doesn't have any of the markings or anything.
I mean, that's a requirement for all other
Construction,
businesses.
it's been here forever.
I don't have a set landscape plan like for both warehouses, just so you know,
It's
which
just-
would be considered a site plan that would maybe the landscaper would have laid it out. because we have no landscaping, so I could, you know, take pictures or hand draw or something like that if you need that set plan for where our parking is. But I believe for the main facility, it's marked out where the park, it's a very small parking
Yeah.
spot in front of the building. It's just maybe for our warehouse is not specified.
And Mike, it's all existing, you know, it's not a new
I
project
know,
or
but
anything.
we're putting it on file, this is, we're cleaning up the plan of operations, what we're doing. I'm just saying you could check with it, engineering, and it's requested in other locations.
Okay.
Well, we do have a motion and a second. You know, I don't know that the applicant's necessarily opposed to providing an updated
We can
last
provide-
survey with the
Whenever
striping
you need,
Yeah.
I-
indicated on there, right?
We're happy to do that.
You've been very accommodating with from numerous aspects throughout the process here, so I don't anticipate any lack of cooperation there, but maybe we can just be on record as requesting that we get some of those additional details for the clerk, just to have on file with the submission. Mike, would that satisfy you?
Because I'm sure Ben would have had that in his notes.
I would think so too, and I actually am a little surprised he didn't. I think we got so focused and caught up on a lot of the mechanics and stuff with the conditional use permit that he probably was running a little short on time.
You know, the good part is, I mean, Ken Wright did a nice job of turning it around and getting it here to us, you know, in a month's time for updating the plan of operations.
Yep.
Do we need to amend that motion then to include, verbiage that just says, additional request for, pavement marking for record keeping?
If the motion maker is inclined to do so.
I don't see any reason for it.
Okay.
So.
Motion stands and second stands then.
Okay, any other comments from the planning commission? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries to approve the plan of operation for Kim Wright, Copac, and just list the one. Let's see, property, do we have other ones for the other two? No,
No, just list that.
all goes together.
Yeah, and clean.
Item number 6, public hearing for Kim Wright Copac LLC for a conditional use permit to keep a well for production at 19725 West Edgewood Drive, Landon, Wisconsin 53046, or more specifically on the lot where the private well has been established. So I would, at this time, I will open the public hearing. George? You're the public tonight. You got any comments? No? Any objections? No? Jeff, how about you? Young lady?
No.
Good answer.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
We have a motion to close the
And a
public
second.
and a second. Any other discussion for the public hearing? Do we have any comments or anything from any of the remote viewers?
Harry, you good?
I am good. Thank you.
Okay, good. All right, all those in favor to close the public hearing?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed.
You want to jump out?
Yeah, do you mind somebody making that motion?
Mike, you want to?
Make a motion that you move up number 9 at this time.
So we have a motion to amend the agenda and move item number 9 up to item number 7. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
We have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We're just gonna do that until, oh, well, there he is. All right. Well, I think we can probably get this other item taken care of fairly quickly. We'll get them on their way and then we can delve into yours, which is I'm assuming may take a little more consideration.
Number 9 is the village board thing.
Oh, yeah,
You mean 11?
that'll be a quick one, yeah.
Yeah, number 9 will be quicker.
Item number 9 is Village Board, discussion and possible action regarding approval of state municipal agreement for the DOT and Village of Lannon funded 80/20 Good Hope Road, 0.84 mile road reconstruction project involving a village financial commitment of not less than $1,401,716. So you folks might remember that we were awarded a WISTOT grant for the reconstruction of Good Hope Road. As part of that obligation, the village is required to commit to a certain portion of the funding. I do not, off the top of my head, have the specific funding mechanism or timing of said funding. This is a TIF eligible project. And it is and has been factored into our capital improvement project plan that Ben and I have been working on with Ellers. So it has been taken into account. So what Ben had asked me if I wanted to just sign this and send it along, I just felt that it would be good for the board, the village board, to weigh in on this and authorize me to execute this and initiate the funding, or at least commit to the funding that's required to receive the grant funding for this project.
Also, we have the funds from Elquest years ago. $300,000 or something like that.
For the park, the lights in the park?
No, no.
Oh, yeah, yes,
To rebuild
Yes.
Good Hope Road.
yes.
Yeah.
Yep, so that could be
So-
used as well,
Yeah,
yes,
you don't have to worry about picking up the rest.
right, right. So I guess what I'd be looking for, well, if you have some comments, Hector?
I think another good reason for the board taking action is that you're committing to a $1.4 million obligation. And under state law, a municipality cannot commit unless there is reasonable confirmation of the availability of the funding for the project. So your ratification, I think, will facilitate the review by the Department of Transportation.
All right, well, I would like to make a motion then that we approve the action regarding the state municipal agreement for DOT and the Village of Lannon funded Good Hope Road project, which would commit not less than $1,401,716. And I would like to note that part of this motion would be to authorize President Yates to execute whatever contracts are required to commit to that obligation.
Would we put in there that the funds would be if allowed? That we're covering.
There's no need to,
Okay.
just so long as there's reasonable assurances that there is funding.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second to
second.
that motion? We have a second now. Any further discussion for the village board on this matter?
Just a question I have, Patrick.
Yes,
Says sidewalks on both sides, curb and corner. Is that all is with the sidewalks in there? Because that is on the one-sided road is business. It's 3/4 of the way down.
mhm.
Is that? Or because it is improving the road? Are the sidewalks on both sides necessary? Because that's
Well,
gonna
it's
cut
state
into
standard.
parking.
Yeah, that's a good question, Don. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head, whether or not there was any plans to change that availability, but it does say, yeah, with sidewalks on both sides, yeah. So presumably, that is in the engineering, but unfortunately Ben's not here to confirm that, but
Just so that's not an issue later on.
yeah. Yeah, they provided, Strand provided all of the cost estimates, with the application. So if that was part of the requirement, as it's noted here, and as you pointed out, I have to assume that that is in fact included, but that's a good follow-up question.
And I have to wonder if that wasn't maybe done on purpose, because I know Ben is also going after grant money for not only planning, but execution of more walkability to schools and.
Yeah, we have a
things, so-
Safe Routes to School, planning grant that we received from WISDOT as well. And there's probably going to be a forthcoming application for some additional funding to actually implement parts of that plan. So, yeah, and this would be a full road reconstruction with all new asphalt and or concrete all the way down to the base, all new curb and gutter.
There's never been curb.
Yeah, well, yeah, it'll be nice.
We're in the big time now.
Right. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, so now we will move back down to the planning commission, item number 8 now.
8 now.
Which is Plan Commission, review and possible recommendation to the village board for a conditional use permit for Kemright Copac LLC to keep a well for production at 19725 West Edgewood Drive, Landon, Wisconsin 53046, which includes 3 separate lots to be utilized by the applicant. So, the moment we've been waiting for here. There should be copies of what is the current draft of the conditional use permit. I know many of you did not get much time to review this. Fortunately, it's one of the few legal documents in existence that is only a few pages. So hopefully you've had a chance to review this. The applicants are here. Thank you very much for making the trip up, and hopefully the travel went much easier this time.
Yeah, well, could have gone any worse, right, than last time.
It appeared that way, yeah. So, thank you for coming. Perhaps what we could do is just take a moment, allow you folks to introduce yourselves, and I see Mr. Witt is not here tonight, but he's adequately represented, so.
Yeah, happy to. Thank you. My name is Tim Spillman and I represent Lewis and Clark Capital. We are the primary investors in the business we have today, as well as the primary investors if we end up doing the transaction with Mr. Witt and Kemright. My brief background, 30 years as an operator. I ran a company that was very similar to Kemright, just much larger. I sit on the board of a different company that does exactly the same thing. And that's our investment strategy. We invest in things that we think we know a little bit about, and more importantly, we can help the company do better than where it's at today. So that's the interest we have in Kemright and what brings us here today. And I should say we're based in St. Louis, Missouri. So.
And you have another facility somewhere else as well, is that correct?
Correct, and Mr. Davis, when he introduces himself, yeah, he was the owner of the facility we have in St. Louis. And the basic strategy that we have is, if you look at the industry we compete in, first of all, the customers of folks of a Kemright or Mr. Davis's business are very large customers like Procter & Gamble, for example,
Yep.
or an Ecolab. So these are highly sophisticated companies. They typically deal with very large players in the industry. For example, just to get a little bit of sense, Kemright has 6 filling lines today. The business I ran had 51 filling lines. The business I sit on the board of has high 30s in terms of filling lines. So most of the businesses that effectively compete and win in this market, of course, have scale, like any manufacturer,
Sure.
right? So the investment thesis that we have at Lewis and Clark Capital is we look for multiple things. One is great owners, great leaders, great organizations, great people. One, and that's what we found first in Will and what we're seeing certainly with the asset up here at Kemright. But 2 is, how do we better serve the market than what we do from just one, frankly, little facility, whether that's in St. Louis or Milwaukee or other places that we're looking, right? So our thought is, if we can put together capabilities across multiple facilities, then our chance of staying and being able to compete with somebody 10 times our size is much better, because we can go to the customer and say, we have capabilities here, here, and here. So for example, the facility in St. Louis has different capabilities, makes different products than the facility here. It's the same concept. You're putting chemicals and water in a tank, you're formulating it, you're putting it into different packages, but what you're actually putting in the package, what type of package it is, et cetera, is a bit different. So yeah, we have multiple facilities, and our plan is to continue to add more and more capabilities, both here as well as at other locations if we find the right opportunity. So, and just to be clear, Lewis and Clark, we're basically private investors. We're folks that have been operators in our past. And today we find, frankly, more value and joy and ability to impact more people as investors, as operators. And we let smarter people like Mr. Davis be our operators for us. So maybe with that, I'll turn it over to him.
Okay,
Yeah, Will Davis, Tim kind of covered everything there, so I just want to say, I'm looking forward to personally working alongside you all, so thanks for having us up. Yeah, I've got 15, 20 years in management and leadership positions. Before I bought PCI, which is the business just like Chemrite in St. Louis, I was with Johnson & Johnson for a number of years and management positions there, and decided to take a leap into ownership of my own small business. So partnered up with Lewis and Clark, Tim and some other folks in St. Louis, and he just described our strategy moving forward. So I currently am the CEO and run the St. Louis location, and will be the CEO also of Chemrite. In saying that though, I want to introduce Heather.
Yep.
Who I think that you all have met. Heather will be, assuming this transaction closes, Heather will be the one leading the site and running the operations. So.
I was gonna ask you to give us your story too, Ms. Lyon, because I know you didn't previously get an opportunity.
Yeah, I've
to
never
do
formally
that.
introduced myself, I'm sorry. I'm Heather Lyon. My family owns Chemrite currently.
Yeah.
I have worked at Chemrite many, many years throughout my lifetime in a family operation. I started as the gardener and I worked my way up, and various different positions. I'm very, very proud of Chemrite and our history and what we've accomplished at Chemrite. So saying that, I'm also very, very excited about our future potential with a new company. I'm really excited about the growth opportunities for Chemrite and for its people. And also, I would not be staying on at Chemrite if I did not firmly believe that they were very capable and trustworthy at taking care of all of our employees, and also being good people in the community. So.
Good. How long has Lewis and Clark been around? Is that a new investment group, or have you been in existence for a
No,
while?
I mean, the investors have been investing in businesses for over 30 years. Lewis and Clark itself is round numbers 20 years, and probably invested in 16 to 17 different operating companies over that time, some of which we still hold. It's over 20 years, excuse me, because one of them that we still own today, we invested in 2000. So it's 25 plus years would be the entity Lewis and Clark's been around.
Is there a typical or an average amount of time you generally hold a company?
No.
Or? is
No,
that all over
the
board?
beauty as a private investor is that our we have no time horizon because it's our money. You know, the word you may hear a lot is the private equity world. Well, what private equity does is takes money from third party and they deploy it. Well, the third party always wants their money back. You would too, and so
Right.
they are under extreme time pressures. I've worked for private equity. I sit alongside private equity on a board. I know that model well. The reason I'm where I'm at is time isn't what drives what we do. We get the business to a point where perhaps it's getting too big for us, or we feel like there's nothing more we can add here. And when we get to that point, then we look to put the asset in the hands of people who can better manage it.
Yeah.
So ideally, you can do that relatively quickly, but as all of you know, been in the business world, it's definitely not a linear line. It's a roller coaster, and so we ride the roller coaster until we think we've got it to a really good spot.
Well, thanks for clarifying that, because I think that's an important distinction for people to understand between, because private equity oftentimes carries a bit of a connotation with it, right? And this is different, and I think that's important for us to understand.
Yep.
Okay, so, little bit of the process here, I guess I'll just outline for the rest of the commission. I did go tour the facility with Mr. Payleitner. That was last week, I don't know, they all blend together. Very impressive. I was very surprised by the amount of volume they put out of such a small space. It's kind of crazy, but, very, very, technical business in nature, very impressive. Mr. Witt's done an amazing job. It's quite an operation, and, he's very proud of it, and he should be. We have Ben, and when I say we, I mean Ben, Mr. Wood, our village engineer, Mr. De La Mora, and myself have been going back and forth about some of the mechanics and some of the language that we felt should be in this new application. You're all well aware of how we got here today, and the situation we're in without an existing conditional use permit in effect. That changes the game a little bit for us here, but I guess what I'll do then is allow Hector to walk us through what he deems to be some of the highlights here, if you will.
First of all, I did send a copy of this to our clerk, and I believe you all may have received it electronically. And in addition, I provided a copy of this to legal counsel for the applicant. And I got no comments back from her today in that regard.
Do you guys got a copy?
We do.
Yes.
Okay. At this point, the village, first of all, by way of background, expended a great deal of time, effort, and money in installing a municipal water system. And one of the very common attributes of that kind of an installation is to maximize the number of users within the community that are hooked up. Hence, the Lannon ordinance requires that everyone hook up unless there's a special exception granted. Previously, the soon-to-be former owner had entered into an arrangement whereby they came to the board and they said, we will establish a deep well. And we need X amount of time to accomplish that. And the reason for that distinction is that the municipal source is in the shallow aquifer where the existing well of this company also draws water. And the state of the law in Wisconsin is that if in fact there is a shortcoming in the availability of water, the municipality gets priority. Now, the applicant did not follow through. The applicant did not inform the village of its decision not to proceed. At the prior hearing, the applicant basically represented that it was too costly. And at that point in time, by virtue of the conditional use permit, it had expired. The village basically arranged to have expedited hearings to facilitate the issuance of conditional use permit for that operation, since they no longer were legitimately authorized to operate. And that was done largely because it was disclosed to the village that the facility, the business was in the process of being transitioned, in that there would be some retention of ownership of either the real estate or the assets for a period of time, at which time then there would be an acquisition by this new Chemrite Copac LLC. Despite my request of that LLC attorney 3 times asking for documents that detailed what the transactions and timing would be, I got nothing back that I can report to you. It's just a blind spot in the responses. In any event, the expectations that we discussed in the working group was that the village is, because of safety concerns and regulatory requirements, seeking a third source of water. And that third source of water is anticipated to be made available, given the preliminary discussions, through the village of Sussex. However, those discussions have not been finalized. But it is expected that when the third source of water is in place, that the conditional use permission here to operate with the use of the existing shallow aquifer well will come to an end. And that there may be the possibility of allowing that well to remain on a standby emergency basis. So that was the essence of what we agreed to in the working group. In addition, there were some expressed concerns about the disposal of water from the premises. Now, we know from the previous presentation that product is shipped out, but oftentimes there's regeneration water and there's clear water to be disposed of. And the discussions that were held disclosed that there was a certain amount of disposal through the village's sanitary sewer system. And that posed the issue of the village having to bear the cost for the processing of any fluids going through the sanitary system, whether they are category 1 wastewater items or clear water altogether. And there have been informal discussions about someone, either the seller or the buyer, compensating the village for a calculated amount of water that has gone through the system that was not accounted for. And in this particular conditional use permit, it is contemplated that the applicant is going to essentially come up with a metering system to provide assurances for all that a fair share payment is being made for any water that can legitimately be disposed through the Sussex sanitary sewer system. At this time, we have received some very limited one-off lab test results about the contents of those waters that have been released into the sanitary sewer system. And we are awaiting a response from the Sussex treatment facility as to whether that is something that they can with confidence treat. Or for that matter, if there is a need for some kind of pre-treatment, that is understood.
If I may interject, Hector, I just want to clarify a point here, if I may. The RO system blow down water, which is presumed to be in essence equivalent to drinking water, is what's currently going into that sanitary sewer system. The other wastewater that may or may not be allowable to be treated is currently being contained and hauled offsite. That's right.
Yes, and that is category 2 water, which apparently is being trucked off to Crystal Lake, Wisconsin. We've been provided with a contract that's in place for that transportation, but there are no details as to what the duties or responsibilities of that trucking entity are. And there are no warranties in that particular document. But be that as it may, it is contemplated that there will be a continuation of these basic steps that have just been described at the facility, except that at such time as the village issues notice that it has the capacity with the third source to basically provide all of the water that the applicant needs, there will be an obligation to connect. And also there will be an obligation to verify that occurrence. Beyond that, I can answer questions if you have any with regard to the document. Or for that matter, for the applicant.
Hector, the $19,000 that's mentioned on line 143, that number came about through, I'm assuming, some sort of calculation that you were able to obtain.
So that calculation was actually provided by and proposed by Mr. Witt.
Okay.
Based on his historical recollection of what transpired and an estimate of the amount of flow that has come out of the facility since 2002. It also, this number varies slightly from the number that he had estimated, which if I recall correctly is about $17,600, somewhere thereabouts. With the presumption that his calculation went through the end of 2024. And by the time this occurs, it'll likely be 1/4 into 2025, and that there's a presumption that there's going to be some additional responsibility there for that.
So Mr. Witt and the applicants are on board with that.
Well, Mr. Witt is, I don't know about the applicant.
Yeah, certainly, we've never seen the calculation, and that's a matter for Mr. Witt. The 19,000 has nothing to do with us. We have no access to the facility today, so we really don't have a comment on it, other than it's not standing for our application. That's a Chemrite Copac Inc. issue, not a Chemrite Copac LLC issue. And that was one of the many concerns we had with the document was we won't pay for something that we got no benefit of, we had no part of. But I would say a couple of quick comments as it relates to metering and dumping into sewer and things like that. We fully support, we were asked, would we be okay with the meter? Absolutely. When we take ownership, whenever that may be, if we take ownership, if we find that there's things inappropriately going in the sewer, we will stop it immediately. I mean, you have my word on that. And so I don't believe there's any. We haven't independently verified. These are reps and warrants from the seller at this point. But I want all of you to hear that we believe that we have a healthy company when we are surrounded by a healthy community in all aspects. We don't expect to do anything different than anyone else is afforded to do. And certainly as it relates to discharge, I've spent 20 years in chemical industries. I've seen a lot of chemicals.
Yep.
And I know exactly how destructive they can be to human health. And so I want you to know we take this incredibly seriously. And if in fact there's anything that's inappropriate, if your testing comes back with it, under our watch, it'll be remedied ASAP. Metering, happy to do it. Can't commit to March 31st. We may not even be closed by March 31st. I have no ability to put a piece of equipment into an asset I don't even own. So, you know, I think the principles that were laid out, we support completely. Where we differ a bit is perhaps on some of the details.
Yeah.
Which we can get into or not tonight. I don't want to take all of your time this evening either, so we're sensitive to that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that you understand our concerns
For sure.
and what we're.
I have
trying
the
to-
same concern, by the way. If
Yeah.
we do not want to be owners of assets that are potentially harming our employees, our customers, or the community.
Yeah.
So, absolutely not.
Well, and to be clear, we know Mr. Witt and we know Heather and
Thank
we're
you.
not making the accusation
Sure.
that we think, I mean, just purely by having wastewater being trucked off site is telling me that they are conscious of the effects of disposal, and they wouldn't be paying anyone to haul stuff away if they weren't only putting in that which could not go into the sanitary sewer. So
Yeah.
I don't think we're casting aspersions, but we are protecting ourselves.
Well, yeah, we, historically, the village, just be very candid, has not had a great track record of memorializing and documenting arrangements as exhibited by this unmetered expulsion into the sewer system that's happening today. It's a prime example. These are things that, we don't, in principle, I think, have any objection to. We just think that it needs to be documented, it needs to be clearly communicated who's responsible for what, and that should be on file with the clerk. You know, it's, and
Right,
so
and
we're,
it should be paid for because the village is paying
Yeah,
for the treatment
right.
of that water and
We
has
agree. Yep.
been for quite a number of years.
Yep,
So
yep.
I feel that that's
So,
fair.
so I hope you understand and appreciate that that's kind of, the position that we've come at this with. And sometimes over the last couple of years, as we've tried to tighten up some of these things, procedurally, it oftentimes smacks of overcorrection, but that's not the intent. So I think this is, I don't think anybody came here expecting this to just get, you know, rubber stamped, everybody's happy and we go out and have a couple beers afterwards. This is probably gonna take some refining and, but it's a good place to start.
I have basically just one item, and that's about line 82. Leading up to line 82, we start about 80. After the grantee has first connected to the municipal water system for production use, it may then apply for a new cup to retain the existing well for such use. My question is this next sentence, otherwise the existing well shall only be used for the production of product which is shipped off premises. I'm kind of confused of how that sentence applies here. I mean, yeah, I think you're missing a word that I
You
thought.
are correct. The version that I sent out to the applicant's attorney on line 82, instead of the word otherwise, simply says, in all instances, the existing well shall only be used for the production of product which is shipped off premises.
Meaning that municipal
So
water will be
good
used
catch.
for all other purposes, like,
Yes.
like the bathrooms and the kitchen break room and.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, good catch, Mike. You are the detail guy.
Hector, you had a furrowed brow and it looked like you were about to comment on,
Yes.
perhaps my comments.
Not on your comments as much as, this is a special permit, a special exception. And if there is an intention on the part of the board or the recommendation of the plan commission to negotiate the details here further, I recommend you not approve it until there is a meeting of the minds the intent in sending out the information to council was to afford them the opportunity to have input so that tonight the board could take action, because we have been in the dark as to what their closing plans are, which we would have learned by looking at the documents. We indicated that any proprietary or confidential information would be extracted, should be extracted from there. But for reasons unknown to me, they were not forthcoming in that regard. So the village has the option of basically getting a consensus that this is where you want to be. And if you further want to consider negotiating, well, then my strong recommendation is that you not approve this conditional use permit.
But Hector, we haven't gotten any feedback from the applicants that they request negotiation, so I'm a little bit confused as to why we couldn't take action on this tonight, because they haven't requested any changes to it, right? I mean, it's.
Okay, I inferred from the comment that was made that this would be the subject of further discussion, but
Oh, okay.
Well,
So-
I inferred that, from the comment, regarding the specific date. Now, that's the only thing, but we have not provided the applicant an opportunity to address possibly other items within here. Which I'm gonna make an assumption, they may have comments about. But the date at a minimum, as presented, makes sense, because we don't know the timing of the transaction. Again, to Hector's point about, we haven't seen specific documents relative to the transfer of ownership and things of that
Yeah,
nature.
well, I'm happy to address the date, and I'm happy to address the request around the APA or the asset purchase agreement. The asset purchase agreement has a blank date for the date of closing. Because we don't know the date of closing.
Right.
If we don't have a permit that we think we can access the well or your water and operate effectively, operate economically viably in the industry, we're not making the investment. So, you know, I could provide you the purchase agreement. If I redacted the confidential information, it would be a useless document. And if you're searching for, you know, what is our closing plan? Our closing plan is when all the conditions are met in terms of diligence, we'll close. It could be next week, it could be next month, it could never happen.
I could respectfully disagree with that. It is not uncommon to have a floating or undetermined closing date. The things that I was interested in, the village should be interested in, is what are those preconditions? What kind of information or data is necessary,
Sure.
and not necessarily financial information.
Right, and the conditions left in closing are simply the diligence that we're doing as investors. The diligence that's open is not documented in our closing docs or in our asset purchase agreement. There are, of course, are conditions to closing, things like you gotta have the lease executed, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
There's not an item in our document that says the well permit has to be issued. It's not in there. There's not a document that says we're comfortable with item A regarding certain customers, or item B regarding certain safety issues, or item C regarding this. These are things that we continue to explore. So again, you wouldn't get a feel for that through looking at the document.
So you just, I'm sorry, go ahead, no.
So I'm gonna step out on a limb here, and I'm gonna make an assumption that really, I mean, there's nothing about this business that you're unfamiliar with based on your experiences that you all have in this industry. My guess is that your primary concern is availability of water and any costs associated with such.
That's one of two primary concerns. That's
Yeah.
correct.
So, you know, I think, in some of my discussions with Mr. Witt, I was very clear to point out that I am simply one member of the planning commission, one member of the board. I have one vote. I don't I haven't ever gotten the impression from this commission or this board that any, you know, we wouldn't be reasonable in the granting of a conditional use permit. Obviously, there are some details that have to get vetted out on our side too. So I think we're getting caught in a little bit of there's a little bit of a standoff kind of situation there, and I don't mean that in an adversarial sense, but it's like the chicken or the egg, right?
Right.
Like, which one's gonna come first? Who's gonna, you know, commit first? Who's gonna draw first, whatever, right? So, I think that's gonna be the challenge that we're faced with is how do we resolve that? And I think what council is probably looking for is, a better understanding of your level of commitment or what those triggers might be for you.
Sure.
Is that fair to say?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and I'm happy to address it. As long as the commission and the board want to sit through that, we can negotiate the whole thing. I spent 5 hours on a plane today and I'm happy
That's
to sit here
Ready to
until,
go,
you know,
huh?
yeah. So I want to make it very clear that we are prepared to try to reach an agreement this evening, if so inclined, and if we can get there. I also appreciate you're probably getting tired of talking about these addresses at every board meeting, so I want to be respectful. But if I can make just a couple of general comments about the concept. The concept is, hey, you're investing money to expand the water infrastructure and make, frankly, a more robust community. We support that 100%. I've said it already, which is we want to be in robust communities that are growing and are progressive. That helps us grow, it helps our employees grow, etc. We understand, because this is what we do all day long, is you deploy money, you make an investment, and you need to get your money back. Of course, we support the city making this investment. A more robust water source is critically important for all residents, and it's critically important for us as a business. We 100% support that. We will absolutely participate in getting you recovery of your investment. Yeah, the petition is written, unfortunately, says, in essence, no matter what quality we give you, and we're not assuring you we're going to get flow every day, all day, you have to take it. And I mentioned before, we work in a scale industry as a small player. The problem that we have is if one of our suppliers fails to deliver, and it happens sometimes, bottle supplier doesn't supply on time, they give you bottles that leak. There's two things that happen. We disappoint and fail to meet our customers' needs. And remember, they can go to someone bigger than us. Normally, this results in an economic penalty to us, which we're in a pennies business. That economic penalty goes back to the vendor. And that's how it has to work, or we don't survive. And that was how it worked when I was in a large scale organization. So our proposal is, look, we may have days where our surge is 6-7 times what we do on a normal day. Mr. Davis took a business, and in 3 years, he took the revenue up 5 times from what it was when he bought it in 3 years. And we expect similar outcomes here. There will be days where we will surge. We will pull a lot of water. Can the infrastructure handle it without disruption to other residents? Nobody knows. We don't know, you don't know. So I think that to say you come on ours, you shut off your well, to use it on an emergency basis doesn't work, and we can get into why that is really putting a risk on the city that if you don't perform, it puts us in an adversarial relationship where suddenly you're a supplier not performing for us. We don't want that.
You could sink a
We're-
deep well.
We could sink a deep well, but we agree with that.
Here is that the solution to needing a consistent, reliable flow of water was to have a redundant system that was held within your property by having your existing well and sinking a deep well. All we're doing is reacting to the fact that you didn't do what you had proposed you were going to do to fix the problem that you're now bringing back.
So
to
if we
us.
commit to a
the
deep well,
current
then the
one.
permit, then this, we don't have to come on city water? Is that what you're
Is
suggesting?
that what you'd rather us do?
Well,
Well, no,
no,
I didn't think so, yeah.
I didn't think so.
that's not, but in response to some of your comments, First, I'd like to start with a question. How many of your other facilities rely solely on their own source of water through a well, their own well?
Years. Yeah, in a previous life, we had multiple facilities that had a well. And generally, they were actually dual source.
But typically now, they're all on some sort of municipal system, correct?
For sure, at a minimum, they have a municipal system that is a backup, but absolutely. Just because of the growth of the infrastructure of water over the last, 20, 30 years.
Yeah,
Agree with you.
it's been a focus, yeah.
Right.
So, and it's my understanding that your current well only has a maximum capacity of about 80 gallons per minute.
That's correct.
So it would stand to reason that as long as we can provide a consistent flow of 80 gallons per minute at a reasonable quality level that would be expected of a standard municipal system, that we could in fact meet all of your demands as they are today. Right?
Sure, and if the city is willing to stand behind that commitment, that's great. I think that you don't have to stand behind that commitment. We have a second source, and therefore we don't become adversaries, potentially adversaries.
And again, we're not trying to be adversaries
Right.
here, but so we're not trying to push this there. What we're trying to do, and we are very well aware of the concern and from you as an operator and how important that source is to you. So we understand that, and we tried to be very sensitive to that in the crafting this document. So that even though we feel we may very well be able to provide that kind of flow even today, but we're not pushing the issue today because we don't have a backup source. And we know that accidents happen and emergencies happen. We had one recently. I'm sure you've heard about it. Okay. That's also why we've very intently crafted language in here to allow the continued existence of the well rather than abandoning it like we've done with the rest of the community by ordinance, because we understand that being down for even a number of hours can have severe impact to your business. And we don't want to get put into that position where it becomes adversarial or there's some financial liabilities for us or for you. So we've tried to be very sensitive to that in here, but, and I think that what we've come up with are some provisions in here that help protect both of us.
I support exactly what you just said. I 100% support that approach. If you get into a bit of the details of the proposed or the draft cup, it says basically once we're hooked up, 90 days later, this cup goes away, or our permit goes away. We can no longer use our well. And we can apply for a new one, and maybe we'll get it, and maybe we'll get other conditions and past sewer bills attached, who knows? And so if your intention is, no, we want you to have this backup, I would suggest a different procedure there, which is why terminate the cup? Why not let the cup reside? And I would also say, we want to be very transparent about the definition of emergency. Like, we may say every day is an emergency and we're running, our well, and you're going, oh, this is convenient. You're not pulling any water anymore. So I'm uncomfortable for both parties that emergency should be defined a bit better, and we'll never get it perfect, but let's get a little more transparency on both sides to make sure we're singing out of the same hymnal there.
Sure. No, I think that's a very valid point. Yeah.
The one thing I'm seeing then is, irregardless, whoever has Chemrite up there right now needs to put in a meter by March 31st. Whether it's new people, old people, whatever, but someone needs to put it in by March 31st. Otherwise, the way I read this is it will be charged $3,000 a quarter until it's put in.
For the discharge.
For the discharge, and that don't matter who is running the place, we're requiring that meter to be put in. That's the bottom line, and whether you have it, you still have it, Someone
That's fine.
needs to do it.
We can,
So I mean, that's a separate, I see that as,
It's
you
a
know,
little
a separate issue, but it's in the cup because we had to put it someplace so it can be done.
And that's the challenging part is that we have a transition that's in limbo here, but it's gotta get attached to one or the other, right? So,
But I would think that the meter, which again, we indicated we're happy to have it. The billing of the back charges, that would be in the cup of the current owner. Is it not in that cup?
And I thought that 19,000 was what Mr. Witt was gonna be paying.
But it's in my
It
cup.
doesn't
It's in my
belong to
cup.
this
Well, see,
And
that's why,
that's
why
my,
I'm
it
sitting
should
here
be in
all
the
of a
other
sudden,
cup. I don't
you
know
when
what's
you
in the
said
other cup.
something about that. I went back, I go, well, wait a minute, who are we writing a cup for?
so they don't have a conditional use permit. That's the point.
So right now, they could be
Theirs
shut
is
down.
expired.
I thought
They could be shut down
actually, I
right
thought
now.
they had
we
one.
do.
Okay, we did. Okay, yeah, you're right. We
We
did.
approved
We see the
I
draft
think
minutes
that's
that suggest it was approved. We just haven't seen the document.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
What you have to understand is that facts and conditions have not remained static. This information about the disposal of category 1 water through the sewer system was not appreciated at the time that Mr. Witt was before the board in December, asking for a conditional use permit for himself. And the interest of the village is only that somebody paid for that, acknowledge that, number one. And number two, that mechanisms be put in place so that there can be monitoring, because we're not gonna have somebody there watching the flow.
Right, and you
which
should,
is
I agree with those
impossible to do.
comments.
Yeah.
I just, we're not standing to the calculation, the activity, like it's just, it doesn't belong with us, but if I was in your shoes, I would do exactly what you're doing. I would just put it in the cup of the current owner.
Well, that's fine. And again, you said there were two concerns that you had,
Sure.
availability of water. What's the second?
The second is quality, but more importantly, quality then as it relates to the cost. So,
Please explain that. That doesn't.
Sure,
make
happy
sense
to.
me.
So this is an EPA registered facility. It has the ability to make products that are governed by the EPA, or excuse me, FDA, sorry, your EPA, the FDA. And so what happens is about every 18 months, the FDA brings auditors in, and they do what auditors do, depending on the auditor. Some are good audits, some aren't so good. The FDA, post-COVID, has been hypersensitive around water quality. My former company had a problem. I was gone from there. The FDA came in and basically shut the facility down for a month, and it almost bankrupted the company because they had a water problem. Water, as it should be, is a critical issue for the FDA.
Was that from a municipal source or was that from a well?
That was from the municipal source. Yeah,
Okay.
it's in St. Louis City. So yes, it was from the municipal source.
And
Correct.
what is your concern about obtaining water from a municipal source? For example, I'm a layman, I don't really know the chemistry here, but we chlorinate the water. We don't add any fluoride to it. You chlorinate the water, you let it sit. We obtain the water from the same basic source, the shallow aquifer. So where is the concern?
Sure, no, great question. So the concern isn't that your water will be of impure quality. The concern was that in the cup, you were very specific to not give any quality representation whatsoever.
We can't. We
I
can
understand
only-
that. I understand that, and I agree with you. You can't. But then on my side, I'm agreeing to something that I don't know what's gonna come in my plant. I understand high probability that it's gonna be great. But if it's not of high quality, the investments we have to make because of the FDA oversight and frankly, our commitment to our customers could become very costly for us. Those who toured the plant hopefully got a sense for, we spend a lot of money on water systems
Now,
and we have to. And
how do you
so
assure that the quality of the water that you get from that well?
we test
is
it.
the-
We test water nonstop, every step
And
of
if
the
it
process.
comes up sour, so to speak, what do you do then?
So our system is designed for the deficiencies that we have periodically to rectify it, or else we don't produce with it.
And why can't you do that with the municipal?
We certainly
water?
could. What we don't know
The
is
expense.
what the expense will be. And if the expense is such that's like, wow, this is 3x of what we're paying today, I can't pass that on to my customers.
And how could the village possibly anticipate that for your business?
I'm not
I
asking you to.
mean.
No, I'm
we have
not,
a
that's not what
water
I'm asking you.
quality report that tells our community that we regularly test and it's good to drink.
But I think, first of all, we're not suggesting the city can do that. I think one of the issues you're having though is, I think you're expanding dramatically your water capability.
Mhm.
That probably means you're getting water from somewhere different than where you are today. Water that you don't actually know what it
We
is.
should increase the distribution of the water that has always been in the same aquifer that you draw from and has serviced part of the village for quite some time. What we've done with the water situation is not to tap a new source, but to expand the distribution of that source.
Mhm.
And
so-
furthermore, then, so from my understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, but we need to have additional sources, I'm sorry, not additional sources, but additional volume available to us. And this is where we're connecting with another municipality. Now, what happens if we start, rather than giving water to Sussex, we start drawing water from Sussex because of the natural ebbs and flows of usage? Now, all of a sudden, does Sussex need to assure to you that if some of the water that comes from the Sussex system hits?
It would be our water. We're purchasing it from Sussex.
Yeah, but,
Right.
and it would
My
always
point
flow
is that I
to
don't
us.
think anybody could really guarantee
I agree with you. Completely agree with you.
his water. So
I agree
you're
with that.
saying if you connect to the municipal water, you may abandon your own internal filtration system?
No,
So I don't,
that's not what I was saying. What I was saying is, we don't know, none of us know. We've all agreed that no one can rep or warrant the quality of the water on day one, how it will interact in our facility. 90 days, we have to abandon our well that works very well for us, serves our customers well, provides meaningful employment for our 60 employees, is a very short amount of time to figure out, do we have this right? For example, if we have to install new infrastructure, we won't even have the parts in 90 days.
Right.
So I'm not asking for the city, if you want to put me on like, you have no choice but ours, and I'm going to say, fine, then you guarantee me that you can help me protect. I know you can't do that. I don't want you to do that. I want to be able to say, let us use our well as a supplement to your flow to make sure that we're not messing with the infrastructure of your system because suddenly we have a big order. And if the quality isn't there, which I think is low probability, but if it's not, we don't have to shut down until we figure it out.
Okay.
We will work with you. What I can't am not comfortable doing is unilaterally saying without anybody knowing quality and or cost, sure, I'll sign up for that. That would be really, really reckless towards the employees of our company. I will assure you that we want to buy water from you. I've said it already that we know we will be part of your recovery. We want to be part of your recovery. We really do. Until we get there and we can together figure out, Tim was worried about a whole lot of things for no reason, and I hope we get there. Great. I just am concerned about in writing, you committed in 90 days, this is what you're doing, the 90 days are up, and we're like, we have to shut down until we figure this out. And that's why I said I agree in principle with what you're doing. We want you to do it. We want to support it. There's some details here that just make me very uneasy.
Right.
But there's solutions, lots of them.
all right, so,
Let me share with you the thinking behind the 90 days. You're getting a 5-year permit here. And you're being told upfront, we're gonna be going and getting a third source.
Right.
There was an expectation that as an operator, because you have special privileges, you'd be the only commercial operation that's drawing the quantity of water that is being drawn now and that you intend to elevate. There's an expectation that early on you would interact with this utility that we're gonna be obtaining water from after we have an agreement, which we will share with you. And that you start planning so that you don't do nothing until you get the letter.
Sure, but until the water comes through the infrastructure into our facility, we don't know. I understand what you're saying, take samples of water from wherever, hey, that's great, that's not reality. Until it gets delivered to us, we really don't know what quality we have, and therefore what equipment or changes we need to make.
You
It's
can go
very,
to the bathroom sink and take a quality sample, that's the village
Right.
water coming to you now.
Right.
we could. And is that exactly where it's coming from tomorrow? Because I thought I heard you're going to another community,
No,
so.
no, if anything, if it does come from another community, it's being blended, what we have here now. It's
But
not a
that's two,
separate
but that's
pipeline.
two chemistries that may not result with the same chemistry you have. You just need to appreciate how fickle water actually is and the interaction of it in our formulations. It's incredibly fickle. We have no problem planning.
Right.
When we feel like this is a valid sample. But obviously, if we're being asked to invest over $100,000, I'm not doing that on a sample taken, 20 miles away. It's gonna be, once we see it in our facility, this is what we're gonna get every day.
Where are you drawing the figure of 100,000 from?
My knowledge of what certain aspects of an RO system, particularly at a mass scale, cost. And what some of the rectifications the company I used to work for had to do
Right.
based on their problems.
I guess I would operate it under the presumption you would use the same RO system that's currently in place.
Well, could we? It depends on the chemistry of the new water. We sure hope so. I mean, that would be ideal. Unfortunately, it doesn't generally work that way in chemistry, but we would hope it would.
So what, just again, because I'm not a water guy either, I make science. What possible contaminant, or I won't even label it a contaminant, what do you anticipate could be in water coming from this third source, which is a neighboring community, that might significantly impact your ability to use that water with your current system?
Yeah, I mean, they're the most common issue in water today is, I guess it's a contaminant called dissipation.
Can you spell that?
No,
I
I really can't. I really can't.
Say it again?
Dissipation. We're happy to provide you a lot of information about it. It's a contaminant that the FDA is very keen on. It's a contaminant that is common in all water. And really, you're managing it to a level that is below any prescribed concern level. But it's not the only, it is but one. And I'm not a water expert either. I mean, I was an accountant, so that's why I can't spell dissipation, but.
Is it a bio,
It's a micro.
yeah,
Thank you.
a bacterial
There's bacteria
contaminant?
developed, yeah.
Okay,
Mike, one other consideration though, is the third source is gonna be a deep well.
right.
It's
Yeah.
totally different.
But it's still being blended in our pipeline.
Yeah, but it also is exposed to the radon, and you gotta take the radon out, and I don't know what parts per million is gonna end up for them, so.
Right.
It is going to be different when that happens.
So I'm sure though that it's not only gonna affect them, I think it's gonna affect everybody in the community. When you start talking parts per million that could hurt somebody, you're gonna have a whole village of uproared people.
A year ago, we sat
Like that's
here-
anything new.
Yeah, right. We
I
sat
mean,
here
what's
a
the
year ago.
plastic chairs, they hurt less when they throw them.
No, I mean, these are, so I agree with you and I appreciate the concern and I understand your pointing out the distinction, right? Because it is a bit of an unknown. Now, we could theoretically go over to Sussex and I can go to my buddy's house over there and I can pull a sample from his house and it's basically gonna be that water, right? At least today.
But we don't know how his pipes are constructed versus how our pipes are. I mean, obviously, water's got to carry through a medium, so it's just, there's just a lot of unknowns, and we are willing to walk with the city through these unknowns. I'm just not willing to blindly commit that we will do this within 90 days until I see what I'm dealing with.
Do
And
you have a time frame?
I mean,
Reasonable.
we propose, our engineer in the site thought if you gave us a year, not that we want to take the whole year, because look, if it works really well, we'd rather draw from one source every day. That's a lot easier than drawing from two sources and having two systems, right? So, but if it's a year, we would feel very protected. with a commitment that we're gonna work in haste, to not take the year just because, but it's a protection for us to make sure that, you know, because we may come back and say, hey, this doesn't work for us and here's why, and let's go to a different solution. We expect, and I think high probability that we'll come back and say, we can make this work. And here's, you know, how we think it works best for both sides.
What about 6 months with the option of an extension under certain?
You know, again, I'm not an equipment supplier to know what kind of backlog they're gonna have 2 or 3 years or 1 year.
Right.
from
We
now.
just went through some modifications with our RO system that literally took 6 months to implement. They brought a piece of equipment that ended up not working properly. They had to go and take it back. And so really just from the standpoint, from the equipment standpoint and
Yeah.
installation of new equipment, it does take a little bit.
We certainly can appreciate that.
Yeah.
We've been doing a lot of upgrades and new facilities that we've had to wait for electrical
Long time.
components. Yeah, we redid all the electrical and
Yeah.
Water's easier than electric.
Plus, we have to shut down our operation to do this.
Right.
To do these changes, we can't be producing. So that also is a scheduling and a loss of profit.
So-
right.
So,
And what's the harm to Lannon, to the village, to give them more time?
Yeah, that's my question.
None.
It's
I
just a policy decision. It's really what it comes down to.
So if we gave you a year, but then you knew in 6 months everything's going really well.
Yeah.
Then you come back and say, hey, we're good? Or you're gonna wait the the other 6 months?
Again, no, if we know before that, we would advise you of that. Now, again, I want to be clear though, we still believe that having the well available to us as a secondary source
We've
Mhm.
already
is
all
part of,
agreed
is
on-
part of the plan, but
Yeah. we have to.
if you can provide us the flow we want, it's always make life simple, okay? And so if we could do that and it worked great, we're with you. We may try to run our well, but the challenge with the well on an emergency basis is you have a pump submerged in water. When you tell it not to work
Yep.
and then ask it to work,
Yep.
it doesn't like that.
Yep.
They like to run or not, and so we would have, that's our issue to figure out, like, how are we gonna keep this well so that it's effective for us as a backup? Don't know. We'll figure it out, but that's where I got concerned about the emergency basis may not be right. We may need to run it once a week. This is way beyond my scope of expertise, but some of the finer points that, you know, we have to think through.
We had this discussion, we went back and forth on this, and it's like, you know, water's funny, you wanna keep it moving, right? And, you know, how do you, the challenge came and we didn't wanna put a burden on you to figure it out, but ultimately, I think there might have to be some understanding of if there's an agreement to allow, you know, variable use like that, how does that get monitored? How does it get controlled?
Yeah.
You know, those are all things that we have to take into consideration.
Sure, and, you know, for example, we
have
could
a
commit to, you know,
demonstrated solution.
70%, 80% of our water usage is municipality, once it's deemed appropriate, and we'll commit to month-end reporting, and I'm assuming we can do this, guys, in terms of monitoring how much we're pulling from one versus another. We have no issue with, being incredibly transparent, and again, we want it to work. I mean, we really do.
And that way it would cycle your well. You
Right.
take 15-20% off of it,
Right.
it cycles.
Exactly.
you can have a meter on our well.
Oh, yeah.
that We read, just the
Yeah.
same as you meter the
No, I
city.
think it's
If you do
important
that,
that it
if you do,
cycles.
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
if you do that, are you willing to pay the equivalent price for the water you're drawing from the ground? From the well?
Oh, for sure. If the economics are the same, that's a win for all of us. You get what you need. We're not looking to make money on it. My concern is the opposite. Your
Right.
water costs me 3 times what mine does. I can't pass that on to my customer. My customer goes elsewhere. I go dark. But so this is not a like, hey, let's see if we can get more opportunity for us. Not at all.
Well,
If it would be a push, we would be incredibly excited about that.
keep in mind, that pun intended is a bit of a fluid situation as well. Because what's gonna happen is we have this agency over in Madison called the Public Service Commission. And, they're not very cooperative. And what's likely going to happen is there's going to be a lot of flux happening when these things start, when these dominoes start to fall. So under the presumption that we do get an interconnection with Sussex. Sussex does not currently have an established wholesale water rate. So they are going to have to establish a wholesale rate. So that means they're gonna, for the first year, they're gonna pull a number out of a hat. And then a year later, the PSC is gonna make them do a rate case and they're gonna come up with a true wholesale rate.
Yeah.
And that's what they're gonna charge us. Similarly, we're gonna have to go through the same type of mechanics with the PSC. Because now we are gonna have an additional source. And presuming that you come online, you actually represent about the equivalent of about 30 households of water use by our calculations.
Presently,
Yeah, presently at your current volume.
Yeah.
Now, you anticipate that you want to double, triple, maybe even more. I mean, this guy's a rock star. He's
Yeah.
gonna
No pressure,
You know.
Will.
be water
There's
shooting
pressure,
out of
trust
the
me,
roof
there's
of that
pressure on
place.
Oil.
You know, so it's, that is going to have an impact on our rates.
Yeah.
Right, but all of these things are going to take literally years to settle themselves
Sure.
through these steps, right? So I think we and you have to be aware of that and understand that, you know, this is the way it looks the day that we both agree we're ready to flip the switch is not, it's gonna look different a year from
Sure.
then, 2 years from then.
Yep. And obviously then, you know, market conditions always change and our concern really isn't as much about the absolute price. It's the price we pay relative to a competitor and what they pay, right?
Right.
So what will happen from Sussex, et cetera? Presumably, what we do when we don't know things is we look to others. And that's what we would love for them to do, is if you look to others who are providing water at cost to my competitor, and we're using the same approach to life, then I'm in good shape because I'm not disadvantaged from my competitor. And then we'll beat them on our employee base. I know we will. I just don't want to be in a gunfight with a knife because I'm upside down on the water.
Do you happen to know what you're paying per 1,000 gallons at your other plants for water? Because that might be an interesting piece of information to know.
Yeah, I certainly don't. I don't know, Will, if you have that.
Not on my, off the top of my head.
All right, so the other issue we have here that was brought up is that this conditional use permit is to Chemrite Copac LLC, which is the new entity.
Right.
So I think if we were to distill this down, and I'm just gonna say, I think some of this is, tell us what it is you're looking for.
Sure.
We will then discuss whether
Right.
we can accommodate that. So what you'd like on this conditional use permit is that it not be Copac LLC, it be the existing entity. And that it becomes,
No.
okay,
no,
so go back a little bit, because
Let-
he's also bringing up the fact that he doesn't wanna pay $19,000 because the cup is in his.
That's just a small piece of this one.
Correct.
Yeah.
This needs to be for them.
Right,
please understand, during our discussions, we deliberated whether this conditional use permit should be issued to the LLC or to the company.
Right.
The company currently has a conditional use permit. It's not in writing, but it's memorialized in the minutes. This conditional use permit is akin to a liquor license. You're the owner
Mhm.
of a building that has a saloon facility in it, but
right,
you're not running it, you're not controlling it. And therefore, the license is unique to the operator.
okay,
And in this particular situation, again, I keep going back to my requests of them, which they ignored. The LLC is gonna be the operator. And hence, this was crafted as this document giving them rights to do certain things.
right,
So, that's the way, we're approaching this.
I think paragraph K, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tim. I can appreciate that you don't want to sign on for something that's not really your obligation. It's a historical obligation, but
Correct.
since what we're trying to do here is memorialize and document the historical occurrences and the conditions, couldn't your attorney simply write something into the asset purchase agreement that says any and all previous obligations to the municipality are the, sole obligation of the seller?
Sure, they could. I mean, obviously that costs me money for my attorney to write that in, and then it's gonna be negotiated with the other side. The problem I have is that there's a document, the public document with our name that suggests we were deficient in the past. I don't like that, because
Okay,
that's
fair
not
enough.
true.
Yeah.
And so I would encourage you to think about the mechanism to assign the issue and the economic cost to the appropriate party. We are,
Okay.
yes.
So an easy way to make a solution for this then is to table this. Until the attorneys can all get together and figure out what they want to write.
Well, there's another alternative, and that is for, Hopac Company
Inc.
to write a,
Thank you.
okay, company is the equivalent in Wisconsin as an INC. Anyway, the reality is, if there is a mutual acknowledgement that there was moment when water was put in the sewer system, why doesn't Hopac Inc. just write a check? Because
Well, I would think
that's
you would
water
want-
down the drain, so
I
to
would
speak.
think you would want some kind of documentation in place showing what the bill was and details of it, but it doesn't belong in this topic, I guess is the point.
Yeah, we could have a separate
Yeah, it's a
document.
separate issue that we
Yeah.
Inc. would like to take care of and are happy to
Yeah.
take care of,
Sure.
but it doesn't belong here.
Well, I
Yeah.
would recommend that your attorney,
He's on
Is it there?
vacation right now, but
Well,
yes,
that's
that's
fine.
probably why I didn't respond.
somebody on your behalf prepare the documentation.
All
All of
right,
a sudden, we're talking about millions of gallons of water, and your buyer doesn't want to pay the attorney to modify this document, when in fact,
well, it's not
their
really his
attorney had the
responsibility.
opportunity to,
It's not my
It's not his
responsibility. It's not a matter,
responsibility.
it's a matter of
It's not his
principle. It's not a matter of
responsibility.
dollars.
well,
Understood. So,
Yeah.
so if this paragraph K gets then amended in such a way that simply indicates that, within a certain period of time, there will be, a village approved metering device for this blow down, water. Is that
Yeah, we've already,
Agreeable.
in dialogue with the attorney, we've already said we're fine with the meter.
Yeah.
I can't be penalized when I have no ability to control actually when it gets put in. What I may suggest, so we don't spend all night, is we're happy to take the pen, and it would probably be more me than our attorney, take a pen and provide what we think, capturing the spirit of what we said tonight.
Yep.
And turn it back, for the commission, the board, whoever's the right, designee to interact with me on, trying to find a solution that works for both. I think we're actually fairly close, and we could mince words all night long, and I just think out of respect for everybody sitting here, I'm not sure that's the best use of the collective time of the folks. So-
Yeah, I agree, and the impression that I've been given is that this is not, it's more important to you to get this right than it is to get it done quickly. Is that fair?
Ideally both, but if I have to choose, I'm gonna get it done right, because I'm gonna live with it forever. And that's a long time. So yes, if it takes us another month, we've been at it a long time, but let's get it right. And I also want to make sure that as we enter a relationship with the village, that you don't feel like, oh, that's convenient, didn't hear about that, because everybody was rushing and it wasn't intentional. We want to make sure that, hey, there's plenty of time for you to vet our intentions, and so that there's no one going into this saying, if only I had known that.
Well,
And usually only with time helps that.
I'll be honest with you, the timeline that we were operating in just to try to get to where we are here tonight made me uncomfortable and put a lot of pressure on, you know,
Well,
Hector and Ben and.
basically, just for your peace of mind, I don't see, you know, I can see this cup gonna go through eventually. It's pretty much, we can wipe out the whole paragraph K all the way down to basically line 159. You know, where it just talks about that
Meter.
if Colpack Inc. doesn't have the meter in by the time they buy or sign the contracts, that they are aware that there is a $3,000 quarter charge on the discharge to the sewer system. I mean, that's all you have to write in there, basically, but I'm not the lawyering like that. That's what we pay them lawyers for. So I guess the whole bottom line then is if we end up tabling this while they correct those items, I hope it doesn't scare you and think, oh, we're not gonna get something passed, because we're gonna come back, and they're gonna, oh, you guys want 4 bushes put over here, and we want orange lights on the outside. No, that's not what's gonna happen. The only thing is, we're just gonna try to correct 2 items, maybe is let the attorneys and the engineers and all that work out on the 90 days. And I don't see a year. I'm sorry, I just can't agree to a year, but because if the water system's put in, say, by the end of 27, you should easily, by that time, by the middle of 28, you'll already know what the water is,
Sure, we just
because
can't
you'll have
predict
testing
the
before
supply
that.
chain challenges that the water suppliers may have for us.
Right.
And
But
we can't run the risk of not being able to produce the appropriate quality water at the right price. That's
And then, so the only other thing would be then is how they rewrite K. I mean, everything else is pretty much, as everybody's been agreeing to.
I think
Well, I
that,
think that there's a couple things. I think one is, thank you for the comment about that these are the issues and the issues won't creep as we dialogue. Part of the reason Will and I made the trip up was we are prepared to move forward with this even in limbo, subject to how things felt here. And if we feel like we have a meeting of the minds and the words aren't right yet, we got bigger things to do. Let's go win together, right? So I very much appreciate your comment. I think in addition to K and that, I think there's also, we want a little more clarity around the use of our current well. It's not just an emergency basis, so I think there's some tweaking there as well. And then we may agree to disagree on the time frame we need as we transition from one to the other, and we'll see where that ends up.
so I would agree with your suggestion that I think maybe the next logical step is to take some of the feedback and this discussion that we've had tonight. Have your attorneys respond with as much additional detail as they may or may not be able to provide that's been requested by council. We can initiate some conversations with Chemrite Copac Inc. Regarding the existing discharge issue. And I think we can pretty quickly satisfy that. And then we'll bring this back. We can talk directly if you're more comfortable with that. If you want to let the attorneys talk back and forth, or if we can.
I generally
Yeah.
prefer to do it non-attorney, just because it.
Well,
Well, attorneys are very, very good at giving you the art of the possible. Us that are a little more simple thinking, we don't think about it, so it gets done quicker. Doesn't mean it's better, it just means it gets done quicker.
I rely very heavily on Hector. I'm happy to have those conversations, but everything will go through him
Yeah,
at some
of course.
point.
Yeah, of course.
The other thing that I do want, encourage you, I should say, to start thinking about is, we also had, rather lengthy discussions about, the service that would presumably be provided to your building. Now, your current well operates between 60 and 80 gallons per minute is my understanding. I believe you have a roughly 6,000 gallon holding tank. You chlorinate it, you run it through a softener system. You run it to that and then into the RO, is that correct? From the tank?
The RO tank generates all the water that's stored in the storage tank.
Okay, so that goes
already
back
clean.
to the
Then we
big 6,000
use-
all right.
we use that.
And then from there it goes into your
Yeah.
mixing, okay. So anyway. If there's an understanding that you want to grow this thing, what you probably need to start thinking about from a monetary standpoint is what size of a connection you're going to want. Okay, so, because this would presumably be a different connection with a larger meter that's gonna dictate your maximum flow. Now you've already paid one RCA fee or meter fee, if you will. That's just for like a standard residential equivalent fee that, for the meter that you have right now. But that meter, doesn't even provide the 70 gallons per minute that you're roughly operating at right now. That would require a 1-inch meter. That's 2 RCA fees. And they're running about $8,600 per RCA fee right now. So if you think that 70 is gonna get you by, and I'm guessing it's not, you're probably gonna wanna build in more capacity than that. I would, but again, I'm just a sign guy. A 1.5 inch gets you up to 200 gallons per minute roughly. That's probably gonna hold you over for quite some time.
If we run out of that, that would be a good problem.
Now, the downside to that is that's a factor of 8. So you would be on the hook for about 7 RCA fees if you subtract out the one you've already paid. So you're looking at like 50 grand, 50, 60 grand for that connection. Plus the meter and associated stuff, plumbing costs, whatever. So I just want to put that out there because it's not a small number.
Yeah.
So
No, we.
give that some
appreciate
thought.
And you're not just a sign guy, you know a lot more about water than I do.
Well,
But no, and I would say that, you're right, like, we would build this, of course, we believe we're gonna scale it significantly, and, if that number would not be prohibitive for us. And if we had conviction around what we're doing, you know, like, again, great problem to have, so.
yeah, and it's a cost you get to amortize out over a number of years, many years. You probably put that on a 20-year amortization or something.
So Hector, how do you want this handled? You want the plan commission to recommend to the board? Or should the plan commission just table it?
Yeah.
Or should we just recommend, as it sits and let the board table it?
At the present time, there are too many unknowns. I recommend that the plan commission table this matter. That the board table this matter pending submission by the applicant. As I pointed out to the applicant's attorney, and even sent her the statute. The burden of proof, the burden of going forward is on the applicant to demonstrate the case rather than just reciting personal opinions, no offense intended, but that's what the law requires for a conditional use permit. And that was changed in Wisconsin recently, so to speak, in 2017. So I think that you should adjourn the public hearing to another date also, so as to allow the applicant to submit more information, evidence for the consideration of the board. And in the meantime, I would hope that their attorney would redline the document, send it to me, and send me the other documents that I've been asking for, so that I can reassure the board that I have verified what has been represented. Again, no disrespect is intended, but that's my role as the attorney to verify understandings that other people have.
Motion to table?
Yeah.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion and a second from the planning commission to table item number 8 now.
so,
Any other discussion? Sounds like it. No, Mr. Grimm, you're good?
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. So the village board discussion.
There is none.
Well,
Oh, we need to make a
it's,
motion
it's on the
to,
agenda, so
Yeah.
we've gotta table it.
yeah, so, I will make a motion as a village board representative to table the item.
I know.
Okay.
Second,
Motion and second by the village board to table the discussion on the conditional use permit for Kimright Copac LLC. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now, what we did not
motion to adjourn the board.
do is in the table is include any adjournment or notion of a new public hearing, but we can still, we can
Just
still do that,
adjourning.
right?
You're adjourning to another date to be determined.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion to adjourn the village board.
And a
All-
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, let's have a drink.
Yeah, right?
No, we have to do aging.
Liquor.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, item number,
I got it, Jerry.
Okay.
I did.
No, faster.
item number 11.
They didn't bring samples? When the donut shop came, we all.
How are you gonna guarantee the quality of this alcohol?
90 proof.
All right, item 11, discussion and possible action on plan of operation for AJ's Liquor at 20316 West Main Street, Suite 106, Land, Wisconsin 53046. We do have the applicant here anxiously and patiently waiting to plead their case.
Anything to do with water?
Thank you for your patience too. We
Yeah, thank you
really
so
do
much.
go through that.
You
um,
make it like they
And
want
pretty
you
much the
to.
younger members too.
No.
She's like, you.
No problem.
So I'll just ask you to introduce yourself, give us your spiel.
All right, so my name's Justin Kapusta. I'm here with my wife today, my daughter Kylia here. So good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. We're excited to present our vision for opening a family-owned liquor store in the village of Lannon. Quick background on me. I live in the community. I've lived in Lannon for the past 4 years. I've worked in the community for the past 12 years. I'm actually a foreman for Lannon Stone Products. But with a growing family and trying to succeed in other areas, I'm looking to open a family-run business. As a husband and wife team, we are passionate about serving our community and contributing to the local economy. Our goal is to provide a well-managed, responsibly operated establishment that offers quality products, supports local businesses, and enhances the retail options available for the community. We are looking to provide a store that is for the whole community, but also upscale for what's coming to the community. And want to have a nice class and offer a lot of different products. We understand the importance of business aligned with the village values. We are committed to ensuring a safe, passionate, and community-focused environment. I'm obviously better at making big rocks into little rocks than public speaking, but I'm here to give it a try.
Takes practice.
Do you have any background in the liquor store business?
I'm not in the liquor store business. I got family that's got background in sales, and they're being a big help in this.
Sure.
What else are you putting into this liquor store besides the alcohol? Or what you might think you want to do with there? I'm curious.
Yeah, so our goal is to provide your standard option that everyone consumes, along with alcoholic, non-alcoholic, any kind of supplies that go with a liquor store. But then also want to cater towards like finer wines and allocated bourbons and store picks and barrel picks from other distributors, and kind of make it a rustic oak barrel kind of look inside, just a nicer one, not like your
Not
average place.
BP.
No,
Yes.
not
Right?
BP. No,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
we're definitely kind of going towards the
Different
upscale.
market.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yep. And this whole area is growing. I see all the subdivisions going up, and I mean, I live right on Good Hope Road. There's so much going around us, and me and the wife, she's been a stay-at-home mom, thankfully taking care of our daughter. We're kind of like, what can we do in this area with the real estate that's available?
Yeah.
that was one of the things that came to mind and kind of went gung ho on it.
Do you intend to sell tobacco products as
Yeah,
well?
that's a good one.
Not to start, we're kind of looking at just liquor right now.
How about like head shop type stuff?
No, that's not really what we're going for. More of just, classier liquor. store.
Beverages?
Yeah,
Strictly?
yeah, yep.
Like that.
And not 99-cent bottles, please.
No.
Yeah,
That-
50 cent.
No. You know, that's not quite the route we were looking to go. We do want to keep it nice and classy and upscale for what we see the future of this community becoming.
VP.
Well, when I told my husband about your idea, he slapped his head and said, that's a great idea. This area could use a liquor store. That's what he said. He's also been sober for 17 years. He requests you have a nice selection of non-alcoholic beers, and we promise we will. He drinks a lot of non-alcoholic beer. It's really a waste of money.
We definitely want to cater to everybody, to a lot of the community, so that is definitely a thing we'll have.
And no fireworks.
And no fireworks.
No fireworks.
Did anybody else have any other questions
Mike,
for?
Mike must have something.
Yeah, Mike, what did we
Oh, I'm
miss?
disappointed. Must be a good plan of
Mike-
operation.
Is this is an existing office in that space right now,
Yeah,
right?
yep. We're not changing any of the layout of the building. It's just more shelves and,
That would be my only possible comment is it's diagrammed out, but it's not really, typically we like to see some measurements on those, but.
Lease building.
The landlord, the slumlord is.
yeah, he's with me here, so.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, we keep an eye on
You know, all you gotta do is sometime when that landlord, when he does these little square boxes, if he just counts the ceiling tiles, he can pretty much figure out the size of these places real quickly for us, so you can say it's 18 by 40.
Yeah, I definitely should have included that.
They're either 2x2 or 2x4.
Yeah.
Every
That's
time.
pretty easy,
Yeah.
All he knows is it's well lit.
Especially.
You're the landlord.
It won't be that bright.
Especially when the landlords have to figure out where to put that light fixture, they gotta count something.
Next time you should have that.
Well, great. Old ones are 9, and new ones are 12, and now they got 18.
Well, it sounds like the planning commission is okay with approving, or making a motion to approve of the plan of operation for AJ's Liquor located at 20316 West Main Street, Suite 106.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Guns and liquor over it.
Yep.
We wish you luck. Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries to approve the plan of operation. Item number 12, discussion and possible action on sign permit application for AJ's Liquor at 20316 West Main Street, Suite 106. Landon, Wisconsin 53046, and I will be recusing myself from this item.
You make it.
I would
Yeah, of
guess I
course.
would have to too then, right, Patrick? Maybe?
Not the owner.
What about the monument sign? I didn't hear.
Was that in
Are you gonna put something on the monument?
No, I did not include that, but we would have a sign on the monument too.
It would just be replacing Pink Flamingo, I would
Yeah,
think, right?
yeah.
So it would be the same size, shape.
Color.
Yeah.
I think we could
Do you
probably,
think you could find the sign guy that could give us a little bit more information? I mean, this is pretty blank. I mean, what lights up black?
Yeah.
I
gotta
can.
do
I mean,
behind it.
I can answer that question for you because I did recuse myself, but, yeah, so this one, let's see, if we go back here. Anyone? Right, is there another piece here?
have
There
you
it is.
decided which sign
Yeah,
option
so-
you'd like to do?
So the black would be typically, it would be opaque, and then it would just, the part that the light would shine through would be the white AJ's and the orange liquor bottle.
Yeah. Yeah,
So it would be LED illuminated.
and does this meet the sign ordinance as far as sign size goes for that?
I think he
I
was.
It's-
don't know,
It
the sign guy-
it matches the size of the sign that's currently there,
I mean,
so I'm assuming so.
But it
But it
wasn't
looks
researched
crooked
by
on
the
my
sign guy.
it's not level in the drawing here.
It's a little off on there,
Well,
but it'll look good.
believe it or not, I did not do this.
Make a motion to approve the sign application for HA Liquor.
I did.
Second,
Patrick? We have a first and a second.
We have a motion and a
You're
second.
rec-
Yeah. All those in favor? Any opposed? Brenda, I
Motion adjourned.
recuse myself.
second, third.
Motion and seconded. Any further discussion?
Wait, who seconded?
Who seconded the adjournment?
Yeah.
Mr. Don.
You're not fun, Commissioner.
I'll second. Well, it's just plan.
I also did.
Mr. Graham. All right, all in favor, aye, please say aye.
Aye.
Right, any opposed, motion carries, we're adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you guys, I appreciate it.
We're pretty good on the two.
Told you.